classic American gold coin, one of the first ever minted in fact, just recently sold for very nearly close on $10 million, setting a new record in a process as well. The coin in question is the enigmatic and much storied Brasher Doubloon, generally agreed to be one of the very first ever American gold coins struck for general circulation. Now, the more astute may very well have noticed that the coin's date is 1787, which predates the creation of the US Mint itself in 1792 by a full 5 years. And of course, that is true. This coin was not struck by the US Mint, or even the Continental Congress, or any other governmental body, but rather by a private citizen called Ephram Brasher, hence the name of the Brasher Doubloon, with his name even appearing on the coin itself, and the reverse boldly displaying his now famous EB counterstamp bearing his initials. So, I can hear you asking, if the coin wasn't actually made by the US Mint, or even by the government or any official decree or license, then how can we call this a coin at all? Or how can we be sure that it wasn't merely a token or a pattern or even some kind of souvenir of sorts? Well, that is actually a fantastic question, and numismatists and historians alike were debating this question for a very long time before general consensus was reached. But let me ask you this instead. What exactly makes a coin? Or rather, in this particular case, what makes an American coin? For instance, we call Spanish cobs and doubloons Spanish coins, even though they may have been minted in Mexico or any number of former Spanish colonies in South America, for instance. Then there is the plethora of pre-Confederation Canadian bank tokens and sundry coins, some of which were very much minted without royal consent, illegally. In essence, we certainly do not shy away from calling those Canadian coins. Similarly, the Adelaide pound, for instance, was technically an unofficial issue, but is recognized as Australia's first gold coin as well. And then there are the Griquatown coins from South Africa that share a very similar story. I'm getting a bit off track here, but the point remains. There has been a long history from around the world, especially during times of transition or turmoil, where industry has stepped up to fill a void where government, for whatever reason, cannot. To paraphrase Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park, the economy finds a way. But back to the Brasher Doubloon. You see, after Great Britain had lost the War of Independence, it stopped shipping over coins for circulation. Not that that was necessarily a high priority to begin with before that point in time, but now the Americas were no longer its colonial territories. In essence, it wasn't their problem anymore. So, the coins in circulation for everyday commerce was a veritable hodgepodge of anything and everything. As long as it was made from silver, copper, or gold, it was money. This chart from the New Ready Reckoner and Trader's Assistant, published in 1793, is an indication of the sorts of coins from English, French, Spanish, and everything in between that you could expect to find on a daily basis. Enter Ephram Brasher, who just so happens to have been neighbors with George Washington at one point where they both resided on Cherry Street in Cherry Hill, New York, only serving to add to the coin's aura and mystique today. You see, silver and goldsmiths like Brasher were in extremely high demand at that time, not only for their skill as craftsmen, but also to act as assayers to verify a foreign coin's weight and fineness. Larger banks even employed such individuals, known as regulators, to regulate, if you will, any foreign coins that they might receive as deposits, in order to verify that they weren't underweight or struck from off-metal compositions. Ephram Brasher also worked in this particular capacity, and coins bearing his EB counterstamp are believed to have been trusted immediately in the marketplace and are very valuable as collector's items today. He even worked on a contract basis as an assayer for the US Mint in 1792, while they were still getting their operations up and running. However, where this story gets really interesting is around 1786. Not merely content with assaying foreign coins, Brasher sets out to create his very own coins. The initial endeavors into this field was to create what is now known as the Lima-style Brasher Doubloon, essentially a copy of the Spanish gold 8 escudos, coin minted at the Lima Mint in Peru, with the coins he used as reference probably bearing the date of 1742. As you can see, the similarities between Brasher's coin and the actual Spanish doubloon, as they were known at that particular time colloquially, leaves little doubt as to this. Brasher did change a few of the details though, most notably adding his counterstamp of EB on the cross and then adding his name on the obverse as well. Thanks to the diligent work of Michael Hodder, we can also extrapolate the lettering around the rim, which reveals the date of 1786. This would then lay the groundwork for what is to come next. Then, in early 1787, Ephram Brasher joined forces with fellow New York silversmith and renowned sword maker John Bailey. Bailey is perhaps best remembered today for crafting George Washington's stunning battle sword, featuring a very eye-catching green ivory and silver hilt. That sword is today curated by the Smithsonian, but again, I digress. In 1787, the two filed a petition to mint copper coins for use in New York on behalf of the state. The license was never actually granted, but Brasher was determined to forge ahead and create what became the Nova Eborac coppers. Again, he looked towards existing coins for inspiration, with his Nova Eborac coppers closely resembling the Connecticut copper coins, which were already in circulation at that time. But then, Brasher would go on to create his masterpiece. Sometime in 1787, he designed and minted the New York-style Brasher doubloons. The size, gold content, and weight very closely resembles that of the Lima-style Brasher doubloons, which we already know was based on the Spanish coins. But this time around, the design of the coin was new. It was original and distinctly American. The obverse bears an adaptation of the New York state seal. Brasher was a proud New Yorker, having lived in the city his entire life, only abandoning it briefly in favor for Red Hook in Dutchess County during the years of British occupation. The inscription reads Nova Eboraca, Columbia, Excelsior, or New York, America, ever higher. Excelsior, in fact, remains the state motto of New York to this very day. The reverse, in turn, depicts an eagle with its wings spread, the national shield across its breast, and grasping a bundle of arrows in one talon and an olive branch within the other. There are 13 stars surrounding the head of the eagle, representing the original 13 colonies, strikingly similar to the Great Seal of the United States. The inscription reads Unum Pluribus, or one of many, within a hair's breadth of the national motto of E pluribus unum, or out of many, one. I wonder if this was intentional or merely a mistake on Brasher's behalf. Latin can, after all, be somewhat of a tricky language, with the date of 1787 appearing in exergue. Brasher then placed his EB counterstamp across the left-facing wing of the eagle on this coin. It is unclear how many of these coins were originally minted exactly, but what is evident is that at least some of the surviving examples did spend time in circulation from their condition. Today, a total of only 7 New York-style Brasher doubloons are known to still exist, with 2 of those in permanent institutional collections. The first of those is in the collection of the American Numismatic Society and has an estimated grade of AU50, with some surface imperfections as the coin itself was only discovered in 1897, when workmen were doing excavations at a construction site in Philadelphia. As a result, the coin has also, upon occasion, been erroneously referred to as the Philadelphia sewer example. Then there is also the Smithsonian example, which I'm sure you can surmise from the name is currently being curated as a part of the National Numismatic Collection at the Smithsonian Institution. This coin was first placed in the Mint Cabinet collection by the then US Chief Coin coiner Adam Eckfeldt, who was depicted here in portrait form by John Ward Dunsmore, presenting the nation's first coinage to George and Martha Washington for inspection. When the Mint Cabinet was created in 1838, Eckfeldt entered this as one of the first coins into the collection, so it seems likely, therefore, that he already had the coin on hand for some years, probably. This coin has an estimated grade of EF40. Next in line is the DuPont coin, which was one of the coins stolen in the brazen 1967 robbery of the DuPont family collection, along with a large amount of cash and jewelry as well. But more amazingly is the fact that this is one of the coins that was actually recovered, though it was sold to the DuPont family in 1933 by B. Max Mell. At the time, it remained unknown to the larger numismatic community. That was until it was reported stolen in 1967. The story of the coin's recovery is almost worth dedicating an entire video to in its own right. Supposedly, the hoodlum who stole the coin wanted one coin just to himself, and pocketed the Brasher Doubloon without the knowledge of the rest of the gang. No honor amongst thieves, I suppose. Paranoid about being discovered or simply losing the coin, and I strongly suspect not having any true idea of what he had actually stolen, he taped the coin to his leg for safekeeping, and upon seeking treatment for injuries at a hospital, the medical staff there discovered and removed the stolen coin, which was then promptly returned to the DuPont family. Then there is also the Gilmor specimen, today graded as MS63 by PCGS. This coin is easily the most well documented of all of the known examples, first mentioned in print all the way back in 1840, when it had already belonged for an undetermined amount of time to Robert Gilmor Jr. in a letter dated March 18, 1840, written by pioneering numismatist G.W. Stern to an English contemporary identified only as Dr. Bowditch. The Brasher Doubloon is identified thusly. There is also a gold coin of New York of the value of around $10, but I know nothing of its place of coinage or its history. Obverse, the arms of New York; reverse, the arms of the United States. The only specimen within my knowledge is in the possession of Mr. Gilmor of Baltimore. I have not seen the coin and do not know even its date. The letter was printed in the Numismatic Chronicles in the July 1840 to January 1841 volumes, and then later reprinted in the October 1872 issue of the American Journal of Numismatics, to which the current copy is credited. The Gilmor coin was last sold publicly to Monaco Rare Coins in 2014 for $4,582,500 and was then subsequently sold via private treaty in 2018 for a reported sum exceeding $5 million. Next on in the census is the so-called McCoy specimen, graded as PCGS AU55. This was one of the earliest coins known to collectors and formed a part of the census of a total of only 4 coins known when Montrevel Dickinson published his American Numismatic Manual in 1859. 16 years after that, Sylvester Sage Crosby issued his landmark book, Early American Coins, and again only listed 4 known examples, citing that 4 of these doubloons have come to our knowledge. They are owned by Mr. Bushnell, Mr. Parmelee, Mr. Stickney, and the United States Mint at Philadelphia. This coin was last sold in 2005, at the time fetching a final price at auction of $2,415. Which brings us then nicely to the famous Stickney coin, named after the coin's first owner of record, Matthew Adams Stickney, famed collector of Salem, Massachusetts. According to source documents discovered by numismatic researcher David Stone in the Peabody Essex Museum, Stickney bought this coin from Beebe and Partial's Bullion Exchange of New York for the grand total of $16 in 1848, which would have been about the intrinsic gold value of the coin at that time, in accordance with a long-standing arrangement that he had with that firm. The same coin would then go on to set a new world record of $6,200 at the sale of the Stickney collection in 1907. It remained off of the market for decades and sold in 1979 for a stunning $725,000. Today, it is recognized as the finest known Brasher doubloon at a grade of MS65 star from NGC, with a CAC green seal of approval atop. During the 2021 January Fund US Coins signature auction, Heritage sold this numismatic marvel for $9,360,000. Now, you may have noticed that that only accounts for 6 coins. Well, that is no mistake. You see, there is also a 7th coin, which is unique from all other known examples. This is the Bushnell coin, also referred to as the Parmelee example, but far better known as the EB or punch on breast Brasher doubloon, owing to the fact that the EB punch was on this particular coin alone, centered on the eagle's breast and not across the top of the left-facing wing, as it appears on all other known examples of this type. The coin is graded as AU50 by PCGS. The coin was last sold publicly in 2011 by Blanchard's for $7,395,000. It was then sold again via private treaty in 2015 for an undisclosed sum. However, I should note that in 2020, Jeff Sherrod of PCAG Rare Coins made it known that they were then offering the coin via private treaty for an estimated $15 million. It remains, however, unconfirmed whether the coin was actually sold at that time. Based off of die studies of the EB counterstamp, it becomes clear that this was indeed the first coin to be struck. Well, at least the first New York-style doubloon. The Lima-style doubloons, of which I believe only 2 coins are actually known, were definitely the first. Then came the unique EB on breast coin, followed by the various EB on wing examples. And then lastly, there is also a unique, which is to say that only a single example of it is known to exist, Brasher half doubloon, which comes last in the emission sequence, based on die deterioration and the die state of the EB countermark. This half doubloon is in permanent collection at the Smithsonian. It was struck from the same dies as the regular Brasher doubloons, however, on an undersized planchet weighing only half as much as a normal coin. Was it Brasher's intention to create a half doubloon in this case? Or was it merely cut down to size in order to conceal that the edges may have been damaged during the minting process? It would be a shame to waste or have to even recast the gold after all. And that, in somewhat broad strokes, is by and large the story of the Brasher doubloon. Although certainly plenty more can be said. Although I'd like to hear from you. Do you think that a coin like this is worth 10, 15, even $1 million? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe to WNN. Remember to also activate notifications with the bell icon to know when new videos are released. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching. Stay safe out there, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.